Damn it, where is Troy? Anyway, I'm Dinosaur Neil.
And I'm Ghost Hunter Dave.
And together, we're Imperius Rex.
I didn't know that was actually part of your bit here. I thought you were actually upset about something.
No.
Caught me off guard. Oh my word. Had to hold on to my hat. Both wearing hats today.
Mm-hmm. It's not even that cold out.
That's right. I'm wearing what me and my cousin referred to as our Grandpa Mason hats, because we had a grandpa that used to wear the old fedoras.
He sounds like a really cool guy.
He was a bit of a drunk and a kind of abusive. So speaking of my grandpa, men in my family tend to lose their hair. And that's something that I'm trying to get a step ahead of.
Oh.
On our last video, you saw my head was a little butchered looking, a little bruised up.
I was going to ask if the old business manager got a bit rough with you.
She did, and that's what we pay her for. But this was something else entirely. Actually tried to be proactive about it. Did a little hair restoration.
Very neat.
To a place in Chicago here, so it's coming along. It's still early, but you know we're gonna see how it goes over the next couple months on the show.
Very cool.
That's
Can't
right.
wait to see what the future holds for your hair.
I can't wait either. But until then, I'm gonna keep it covered because it's not quite there yet. But speaking of hair, I mean, we're not here to talk about hair, unless we're talking about that sweet Viltrumite mustache
Oh
hair.
my god.
Because we gotta talk about Invincible, Neil.
We are.
That's right, Invincible. Coming up top of the hour, we should also mention
Yes.
that Falcon and the Winter Soldier also premiered, along with Zack Snyder's Justice League, which we just did an episode on.
Mm-hmm.
My word, March has been giving us bountiful gifts aplenty this year, as opposed to last year when it only took things away.
It took everything from everybody.
Yeah.
And it only goes up from here.
Does it?
Feature films on HBO Max, like, just increasing, along with the shows continuing to run.
That's right. Kong and Godzilla, probably going to be aired by the time this episode goes live.
Yeah.
And then
Mortal Kombat.
I was going to say, I don't know about you, but I know about you. Mortal Kombat is definitely on our radar. We might actually have to draw up a Ring of Honor and fight each other.
I think we will.
We'll get Troy in here for that.
We'll have a big old fight.
That's right. And if you're wondering where Troy is, Troy's at home. He's doing well.
Yeah,
He's just,
absolutely.
balancing family responsibilities, his own podcast. He's still a part of the show, a big part.
Oh, yeah.
But in an effort to get content out a little bit more frequently, and since Neil's here like every weekend, we thought, let's just bring Neil.
Sub him in.
Just bring him in. He's a Troy light.
Yes.
He's 70% to the max extreme.
I accept.
Neil to the brim.
We are talking to a Troy to the max extreme. So I'm only like the 70% to the Troy to the max extreme, but 100% Neil to the max.
Oh my lord. I don't even know what that ratio
We don't know.
amounts
The exchange rate
in
is
normal people terms.
Don't know. Maybe it's a couple of Daves. Not entirely sure.
I can guarantee you it's not. If anything, it's half a Dave.
Oh boy.
When this new hair comes in, it's going to be a third of a Dave.
Oh my.
Mind you.
Oh boy.
And one last thing before we get into it, we have our Sandman book club, our Dream Stream live book club coming up in April.
Yep.
So make sure to get reading Sandman Volume 1 and join us for that. April 24th, I believe, is the date we set.
Yep.
If it's not, I will change it on screen, but I think that is what we all agreed on. So yeah, that'll be fun. But we've wasted enough time.
Yes.
Let's get to that sweet Viltrumite mustache that can be found within the pages, and now the big, small screen of Invincible.
Your TV's pretty big, though.
I'm pretty proud of it.
Me too.
I like to think that it's overcompensating for something.
The first 3 episodes of Invincible have now dropped on Amazon.
I remember when we heard they were making an Invincible adaptation. Didn't know if it was going to be a movie or a show or what, but this feels like it was years ago. And then we heard nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, is this still happening? What is going on? And then just out of the nowhere, they dropped that trailer like a month or 2 months ago. And it looked great. And then boom, we got it all early, mind you.
Yeah.
A day early, not a night early.
Yeah.
But wow. I don't think anyone was expecting how faithful this was to the comic that is pretty much universally known and loved at this point. And yeah, I have to say, it is probably one of the, and this is only 3 episodes in, but like one of the best adaptations of a comic, like the source comic material I've ever seen.
Very much so. I mean, not only that, story-wise, they're nailing a ton of story beats. Obviously, they're kind of streamlining this from what we can tell for television.
They do flesh out a little bit more in certain areas, too, than the comic. Like,
yeah.
The first episode is kind of the first issue of the comic, so it didn't quite, like, cover all the bases right off the bat, but they dedicated a little bit more time to, like, establishing Mark and his family and his relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that was something that I didn't know was missing from the comics, but I'm glad they gave a little bit more weight to it in this.
Yeah, I think with the pace that they're probably going to have to quicken up a little bit in the show, depending on where they're going. I think they want to make sure that we're going to have proper feelings. For the people who don't know the character and are coming into this cold, obviously you're going to want to build that character stuff in there, so. Yeah.
You didn't read the whole thing, did you?
I'm not through the whole thing. I've probably read the first, oh boy, I don't know.
First third?
I would say the first two-thirds. I've probably gotten about two-thirds the way through it.
Okay, so nothing shocked you just yet.
No.
In a show full of shocking moments. You saw all of them coming, and we'll get to them. We'll get to those here. You remember, me and Troy did the entire thing. We did our Summer of Invincible a couple years back. We grew mustaches for it.
Exactly. Very good stuff.
And man, what a read. One of my favorite comic book. One of my favorite superhero comics as a chair. If not the best straight up superhero comic I've ever read.
Yeah, it takes familiar concepts that you'd know from like superhero things, but it takes from all over the place as far as
puts a little twist on it.
Yeah, and it does put a little twist on it, so it's still refreshing to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of looking at, not only did the show kind of nail like the story beats so far of what the comic book, stylistically, artistically, has just nailed this. Knocked it out of the park. Like, looks just like Cory Walker's art.
Yeah. Yep. So there's two main artists. Essentially, only two artists on the Invincible series. Cory Walker, which kicked it off, and then Ryan Ottley, which came on after, like, the first 20-something issues, maybe.
Yeah.
And did it for, like, 120 more.
Put in a lot of work.
Yeah, so he's normally what you kind of think of with Invincible, but I think his art style is a bit more intricate, maybe, than Walker, so Walker's might actually lend itself more to animation.
Absolutely.
And it looks like it was just pulled right off the page.
Oh, yeah. Like, you might almost mistake it for, like, it just kind of looks like
a motion comic or something.
Well, that or, like, a lot of other animation studios will look kind of similar, but, like, this is nearly spot on from the pages.
Yeah, I was trying to think of other, like, adaptations of, like, animated adaptations of comic books where they captured the style as closely. And there's, like, some DC ones, I guess, that, you know, like, New Frontier, I guess, comes to mind. That one was almost perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Morrison's All-Star Superman tried, but couldn't quite get that level of quietly
detailed. Art is so hard to probably get in animation,
Yeah, and there's a few others, like The Dark Knight Returns tried a little bit of Frank Miller, but this is, like, maybe it's an easier style to replicate, but it is spot on.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not familiar with the comic book, this should get you into it. Absolutely, if you're into the show. Like, definitely go read the comic book for sure.
Yeah, it's a property that I think comic book fans, essentially, will always recommend, but it's not a Marvel or DC book, so it's not as widely known. I think it's going to blow up after this, because I think everyone is going to realize, like, oh, this is that Invincible thing everyone's been talking about. This is great. Oh, shit. Yeah, I can see why everyone loved this.
Yeah. Well, and what's great is you could...
it's so accessible,
That's what I was going to say, yeah. Like, because, like, if you've just watched the show, and you go in, and then you want to read the comic book, it's going to fit, like, right in there like a glove. So.
Especially because Kirkman, who his claim to fame, obviously, is Walking Dead. Both of these are great in the fact that all you need to read is Invincible, or all you need to read is Walking Dead. You don't have to worry about a million spin-offs. You don't have to worry about, like, 10, 20, 30 years of back continuity. It's just issue 1 to the last issue.
Exactly.
Just read it through, and you never have to be like, is this a reboot? Is this a new writer jumping on? It's just, it's so straightforward. It couldn't be easier to get into.
Yeah, because as a counterpoint, I had a friend ask me, where should I start with Avengers? And I was like,
I don't know.
Disassembled's good, but it's got
The
a million.
movies? I don't know.
Civil War, like all those are good, but like it's not just a straight through path. There's a ton of things going on all over the place. I'm like,
on that note, I'd say start with New Avengers from
New
Brian,
Avengers was pretty good.
Yeah, from Bendis, which we're talking about in our Event Fatigue podcast.
Oh yeah,
little side.
Venture?
Yeah, a little side venture. A little side business venture.
Yeah, there we go.
A little side plug.
That's
a back end plug.
There we go. That's the kind of plug we need.
That's what I meant to say. So about the animation style, we both enjoyed it. I think everyone pretty much loves it. There are highs and lows on it, I want to say, or maybe highs and like mediocres. It's never bad.
Absolutely.
But they're like, you can tell where their time went.
Yeah.
And it was a good use of their time because the action sequences are just next level.
Phenomenal. Like the best like motion stuff you've seen. Explosions are super crisp, super voluptuous, like
people exploding like water balloons.
It's so great. But yeah, you can tell where like the budget animation came into play.
Yeah.
And it's like unfortunately for me, it is noticeable. Like and we talked about it briefly right after we watched it. There's a part where Mark is flying. And it looks like he's just somebody has him on a stick going through like a...
But only one scene. It's like they just brought in like a nephew to do that one. And they're like, good enough.
Yeah.
But everything else, like with the flying, looked fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe they have two different like teams working on certain areas. Like the A team is doing the fights and the really cinematic stuff. And then for the kind of general like just at home talking stuff, they've got, I don't want to say the second stringers.
But man... the action is just incredible. Like, and each episode so far has had a very good action sequence in it. And they nail it. Like, it looks so tight, so crisp. And it's just and it's exactly what I would want to see out of this show.
And they dedicate a lot of time to it, too. Like, I mean, that's not even saying... Each episode is like an hour, like 48, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Which for an animated adult superhero cartoon, that's unheard of.
Yeah, I was expecting these
20 minutes?
20 to 25 minutes, like...
Yeah, they have so much time to just like really get into it and flesh it out. I was blown away by that.
Yeah.
And it just moves right along, too. It isn't ever just lagging.
Yeah.
I'm not waiting to get to the next fight scene. I'm genuinely interested about, like, the heartfelt moments of this, which I think are really well done.
Exactly.
Probably due largely, in fact, to the source material and the voice cast in this, which is next level.
Oh my god, there are so many good voice actors in this.
You wonder how they got everyone on board. I'm assuming it's because Seth Rogen was so heavily involved, and he knows enough people that's like, yeah, come on in, let's do this, it's gonna be fun. And everyone just kind of comes in for like an afternoon, does a couple little lines, and then takes off. But it is so, like, well-rounded, this cast.
I would say having Kirkman involved, too. Probably, Walking Dead's huge.
Yeah.
If I'm going to get in on something, this could be it.
Ground floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. J.K. Simmons as Omni-Man is exactly how I pictured that voice. Even though I never, like, read it as J.K. Simmons. Just perfect.
It's, Stephen Yeun, Invincible, like... He sounds like a high schooler.
Yeah, I didn't know he could
sounds
sound that
very
young.
Yeah.
And Sandra Oh is his mom. It's just that perfect, like, fun with a hint of desperation to her.
All the side characters also, like, they didn't skimp anywhere as far as voice cast goes. Alan the Alien, voiced by Seth Rogen.
Yep. He was just hanging around. They were like, hey, record this quick.
That. Like Rex.
Zachary Quinto.
Quinto's robot.
Perfect, that logical Spock sounding voice.
One of my favorites, Rexplode, voiced by Jason Mantzoukas, which is he's just a dick bag, and it's perfect.
Yep, and Adam Eve, God, is it Jillian Jacobs? Jacobs. She's in Community.
Yep.
She's fantastic in it, and I don't know if she's done a whole lot lately. She probably has. I just haven't kept up with her career. But I loved her in Community, and she's a terrific Adam Eve voice.
Yeah. Cecil Stedman's great. Walton Goggins, like
he was the only one that I didn't immediately register with. Where I'm like, I pictured someone more like Ed Asner for him, like a gruffer, like old cowboy. As you were just talking about cowboy.
But now they got a nice younger cowboy.
So I mean, that's right.
But now
I warmed up to it.
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. Oh my god. He'll never, like, if you get this guy in your voice cast, you've nailed it for me. We're talking about Dark Blood's voice, Clancy Brown.
Yes.
Just incredible. If you put him in anything, I'm in.
So this is like another shining example of how close they're adhering to the comic, where this is a character, a side character, that does not need to be in this book. But the fact that they put him in, and I feel like they've given him more time in this than he ever had in the comic. Yes. And I am so there for it.
Yeah.
He's Damien Darkblood, the demon detective, who's like a cross between Rorschach and Etrigan.
Yeah.
And he's so great as this.
Yes.
Never would have just pictured him being like a highlight of this show.
And I hope they do kind of keep that thread that he has in the comic book, because they're nailing like these long comic beats so far.
Yeah, these kind of long jokes. Or
so I'm hoping they keep it up, and it's going to be great.
Kirkman is the king of that, especially in Invincible, where there's just these little side stories peppered on that they just kind of keep circling back to over the course of like 100 issues.
Yeah.
And some of them have these wonderful payoffs, and then other ones, the payoff is that there's no payoff.
And that's just
and without any spoilers, Damien Darkblood is one of those. We can talk about a couple little changes too, which the changes are minimal. The ones that do affect it, I think, are for the better. And that's the fact that they've kind of diversified the cast a bit.
Absolutely.
Which, Kirkman's a white dude. Most comic readers are white. It's fine. Most of the characters in this were white. But for the larger audience and to be more inclusive, it makes sense to put more characters of color in this.
Yeah.
Specifically, Invincible.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. Maybe he was supposed to be half Asian in the comic.
Maybe.
And his mom is Asian.
Yeah.
And I just, like, in my white vision, I didn't ever register it as that.
Not same.
But he is in this. I'm like, oh, that's great.
Why
like
not?
One of the first Asian superheroes.
Yeah, incredible stuff.
Yep, and Rexplode is black in this, along with Invincible's
first girlfriend.
And it's like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
It's perfect. Rex is a huge dick, of course, so it's not great representation, but he's a fun character. Yeah. One other addition that they added right off the bat, which immediately almost took me out of it, where I'm like, where is this leading? And it's how it opens with that conversation outside the White House between these two security guards that goes on so long. Yeah. And I'm like, what is this? This isn't in the comic? Like, are they just setting up this heartfelt father-son story that the security guard is telling so he can just get, like, brutally murdered? And it's just like, it's that kind of show, guys. Yeah. But it wasn't.
Nope.
And then he comes back later and you see him with his son. So there's like a little callback to that. But I think it was just to kind of establish, like, this is a very father-son story.
That's a good way to put it.
And I didn't even register that until later when Mark is talking about his comics and he recommends Underwater Welder, which is a great book by Jeff Lemire. I think we did an episode on it way back. And that is also a story about a father-son, like this estranged father-son, or this father that left his son a long time ago. So there's these little seeds to what is going to happen in this. Yeah. Which they're also really doubling down and playing up on the father-son dynamic between Mark and Omni-Man, where Mark feels like he's not good enough for his dad, and he can never be like as great as his father is. And that wasn't anything that I didn't pick up quite as much of that in the comic.
No, I would say so as well.
But I think if you're streamlining it, trying to pick some like themes to really hit home for the show, that is like the number one theme of this.
And they're nailing it so far. One thing I'd like to touch on one of the story beats, so kind of like spoilery kind of for the book, but the first episode really shows you kind of where it's going right away.
We doing the end?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Okay. Full spoilers. But yes, the end of episode 1 is jaw-dropping if you don't know it's coming.
Exactly.
If you do know it's coming, it's even better than you expected.
Yeah, so the first episode kind of starts with that father-son talk between the two security guards. Then it kind of introduces like this universe is like Justice League type thing. So it's got like a Batman character, Superman character, Martian Manhunter character, Wonder Woman character, all
Guardians
that kind
of the Globe.
Guardians of the Globe.
Government funded.
So they kind of get introduced then, and at the end, it shows them all just getting butchered.
Yes.
And in the comic book, it left that a little more ambiguous.
Well, no, it shows them all get killed, and then the next page, it's revealed that it's Omni-Man who did it. Whereas this one, Omni-Man shows up, and then just slowly, over the course of a massive fight scene, kills them all. Where it isn't just like, bing, bang, boom, they're dead, and the surprise is that it's Omni-Man.
Right.
This is the surprise, Omni-Man is fighting them, and then, holy shit, is this a brutal fight that transpires. And at first I was like, oh, you know, I like the reveal that it was him, but by the end of it, I much rather preferred this just drawn-out battle between them, and you're like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
It is so brutal.
It's the most brutal thing, and it's funny because your 8-year-old son
watched it with us, and he loved the Fishman. He loved the Aquaman analog to it, and the whole time he's like, "Oh, he's my favorite. He's my favorite." Like, and I'm like, "Don't get too attached to him, buddy." And he goes, "Oh no!"
And the second he started beating people up, he was just like, "No, no, no!"
He has an affinity for fish and reptiles, which brings me to this other really funny thing when we were watching when the Mauler twins escape prison. It just cuts to outside the prison in the Nevada desert, and there's this cute little lizard on a rock. And from where the show's been going so far, you're like, that thing's gonna die. So as soon as it shows a lizard, he just goes, please, 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 please. And we're all holding our breath, like, my God, I'm gonna do it. But luckily, it goes away unscathed.
We're good.
So
Lizard
thank
is
God.
safe.
I don't know if we could have handled the trauma
I
if
don't
that
think
lizard
so.
bit it. But yes, that whole end of first episode shock. If you don't know that's coming, it is like jaw-dropping for the average viewer.
And if you don't realize how disgustingly violent this could possibly be...
That was my second point, yes.
This will shock you. I would say, typically don't let an 8-year-old watch this, is what I would say.
Unless you've warmed them up on RoboCop and Terminator 2 and all these other movies we've been watching.
Yeah, it is very faithful to the comic book in this regard. It is uber violent.
I would say they replaced the shocking reveal that it's Omni-Man with the shocking reveal that this is as violent as the show is getting in this. Because up until that moment at the end of episode 1,
very clean.
It's pretty much like, oh, it's like a generic superhero thing. And then that is like their mic drop of like, no, it isn't. This is how it's going to get. And then every episode after that, when the title card came up, it got bloodier. Like a splotch of blood got sprayed on it, which I imagine by the end of this run, it's going to be painted red.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be like this little invincible figure here, just coated head to toe in blood.
Just guts. It's going to be oozing out your television. You're going to be so bloody.
Good luck getting him to stand back up.
Well, he stood back up.
The fates are with us tonight. But yes, that was amazing. I think they have just captured the spirit, the look, the heart of the comic through and through with this. And we're only 3 episodes in. Granted, they're our episodes, which is better than we could have ever asked.
Exactly. Especially if they're going to keep up this pace.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like, that was another thing I wanted to bring up, too, where I think it's maybe issue 6 that the Guardians of the Globe are killed. Whereas this one, it's the end of episode 1. And sure, they could have, like, waited and drawn it out more, but I think it's better that they're, like, right off the bat, they're like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you think these guys are going to be the heroes. No, they're done. And 2, it's like, it doesn't need to. The shock is still the same amount of shock, whether it happens early or 6 episodes in.
Yeah.
Let's just go. Let's go through it.
Might as well.
Maybe he's learned something from the Walking Dead show, which is just tortoise slow.
Yes.
So this one, they are just going right along. And credit to Rogan and company. I'm not sure all the other people that are behind this, but I know his name is front and center as like one of the spearheads of this.
Yes.
But they did a great adaptation of Preacher, which took a lot of liberties from the comic, but I thought kept kind of the spirit and the humor of that.
Absolutely.
They're doing The Boys for Amazon as well, which is getting phenomenal reviews. It's fun. I think it's a lot better than the comic.
Yes.
And now they're doing this. It's like, what a track record these guys have. And never would I have imagined like Seth Rogen would be involved in some of the best comic book adaptations.
I know! Exactly. And
like, whatever you're doing, Seth, keep it up. Like, give him more properties.
Might as well, and it's funny, because when I first heard he was doing Preacher, I was like, that's not the right fit at all. What are you talking about? But it's not about it's Seth Rogen because he enjoys the source material and wants to say faithful or at least knows how to interpret the source material correctly.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, so a lot of things just like can't get that thing right, that special thing right about what's going to draw you into that. And Seth Rogen seems to have that number.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that both Preacher and Boys, where Garth Ennis has a really sadistic, dark sense of humor, which I think probably he gravitates to.
Yeah.
But Invincible, it has that sense of humor, but it's not as mean-spirited as those. I think he's kind of replaced it by making it a bit more like earnest.
Yeah.
Which is, it's good. It's a great change. I'm glad that's the tone this has. Because when that security guard was pouring his guts out about his son, I was
thought
like,
he was going to explode.
This guy is just going to get murdered.
Yeah. So far, he's just having a lovely time in Europe with his son.
Yep. Which gave us the flying garbage bag gag.
Yep. Was there anything else you need to touch on the Invincible show?
God, we covered a lot here, and there's still a lot to come.
Yes.
Is it 8 episodes? Is that how many we're getting?
I believe so.
8 hours of Invincible. Oh my God. Who would have imagined?
I'm curious as to know what that end card is going to be.
I think we've spoiled the hell out of this, but I think it's got to be where he realizes his father is who he actually is, and they have their big throwdown, and then Omni-Man leaves.
That would be
my guess.
Yeah.
But the way they're blowing through it, I don't know. Maybe that's going to be like episode 5. Who knows?
Who knows?
But I'm excited. One thing, like, streaming shows don't tend to go a whole lot longer than like 3 or 4 seasons tops.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be curious if they're going to start really condensing storylines.
Yeah.
Or maybe just like leaving out some entirely, because like the comic obviously has to go month to month. They have to draw some stuff out. They have to do a little bit more filler. But I guess if you're looking at like the big character arcs, you could conceivably knock this out in like 4 or 5. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff.
I was going to say,
a lot of the fun is kind of the filler in this.
Yeah. They've already kind of drizzled in all these side characters, like Mauler twins have been in it.
Oh, yeah.
Doc Seismic has been in it.
Yes.
Like,
just seeing all these characters, all these throwaway characters that I love in the Invincible lore in this, and they just look dead on. Like, there is no like artistic liberties with it. It is just straight up what you loved in the comic.
Yeah.
The one other thing I wanted to mention was we talked about Invincible flying.
Mm-hmm.
I thought where they went into detail on the dynamics of how he flies was
super interesting.
Like, there's so many superhero shows and movies where they just fly, and it's like maybe there's a little bit of a learning curve there, but like, yeah, they just fly. They spend like a good maybe 10 minutes solid talking about like how they fly, and I'm like, that is really interesting. They never go into why they can fly or like how they bank and how they like have their own gravitational pull or whatever it is that keeps them up there. I was like, that is really good on them.
Exactly.
And I don't think that was ever really anything expanded on too much in the comics. So I was like, that was a great addition.
I'm guessing just Rogan was super high one day. It was like, I think this is how they do it.
Yeah. It is absolutely the comic come to life.
Yeah. 100%.
Maybe not to life if it's not live action. It is the comic in motion.
In motion. There we go.
Not to be confused with the motion comic that they also did for Invincible like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's the comic.
Yeah.
It's just the comic on your TV.
Interesting. Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think of Invincible so far? I would be surprised if anybody who enjoys the comic is not digging the show right now.
I would have to say the same thing. Obviously, there are little things here and there. I've seen some negative criticism of it, but I think it's just like being able to separate what you want from the comic from the show. And I get that there's going to be issues in there too. But so far,
a lot of issues. Like 147 of them.
Oh boy.
Dad joke.
But yeah, it's very faithful, very good so far. Looking to see how this wraps up.
That's right. We'll probably do another episode because, like, we love Invincible here on this show. So we did 3 epic episodes on it ways back. So we'll circle back. We'll bring Troy in.
Yep. There's
Hopefully he'll be growing a Viltrumite mustache at that time, and we'll talk about the entire show once it's wrapped up. So I think that'll do it, Neil.
It sure will.
Before we go, we want to always thank our patrons for the support. If you want to support the show, you can check us out on our Patreon page, get access to our free Discord where we just chat all day long.
Oh, about anything.
Anything. And you also get a bunch of other cool stuff for joining. So
Sweet
check it out. If you're on the fence, you owe it to yourself to find out if it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Neil, you've been enjoying a coffee here.
I sure have. This coffee was actually courtesy of one of our Patreon
donated
members,
to the show.
From Sabbath Coffee.
Drew Borrow.
Yeah, so thank you very much for saying to it. If any of you out there are into coffee and such, great roasters, we recommend
I'm
it.
into coffee.
Same.
This is not a paid promotion.
Not a paid promotion.
This is the friendship
it's
and community
just because
that we're
we
fostering.
like it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So until next time, I've been Ghost Hunter Dave.
Dinosaur Neil, baby.
And we've been Imperius Rex. We'll see you next time.